Tecovas is the go-to for premium, handcrafted Western boots. Stop by any store location for a warm welcome, a cold drink in hand, and a truly one-of-a-kind shopping experience. Let our friendly staff help you find your new go-to boots, whether your first pair or your 50th. Finish things off with a complimentary boot brand to make them extra special. Come for the boots, stay for the good times. Tecovas, forever West.
Everybody, welcome to Scott Fox After 9. A brand new week is underway, and I'm super glad you're here. Thanks for checking in, and thanks for giving me the day on Friday. I took Friday off. You know what? It was Masters weekend, and it was going to be nice this weekend for the most part. So I decided I'm going to take a day. Short week last week, but this week I am raring to go, and man, there is so much to talk about. Today is a day that is going to change the Canadian political landscape. By-election day. 2 of them in Ontario, 1 of them in Quebec. For sure, the federal Liberals are going to have a majority government after this day is done. And that's not what they were given by the voters. The voters a year ago gave them a minority government. That means they have to work with the opposition parties if they want to pass legislation. Mark Carney did not like that. He wanted a majority. He wants to put through his agenda. And by the way, not only does he not want to work with the opposition parties, he also doesn't really care what the voters think because he went for floor crossers. He tried to lure people from other parties to join his party. And I have to think the only reason he did that is because he's not confident he can win an election right now. And it's kind of interesting because the polls say if an election were held today, he would win a majority government. A lot of people don't believe those polls, and I think the prime minister is one of them. Otherwise, he would have just called an election. If he wants a majority, the polls say he'd get a good majority if he had an election, but he didn't do it. Why is that? Probably because he doesn't believe the polls either, everybody. Probably because of that. You're going to hear a little bit from the Prime Minister in this episode of the pod. It was the Liberal Annual Convention this weekend in Montreal. I've got a couple of speech highlights for you and an interesting policy proposal from the Liberals. They're suggesting that we charge an exit tax if somebody wants to leave Canada and move to the U.S. or over to Europe or somewhere like that. Seriously, they want to charge an exit tax so they can tax you one last time on the way out the door. But we'll get to that. Let's ease into this week slowly. Part of the reason I took an extended long weekend is because I wanted to watch the Masters. And my guy, Rory McIlroy, if it can't be Tiger Woods, I want it to be Rory. He won back-to-back Masters championships.
Here we go. His year again. Rory is a rare repeat winner at Augusta.
You know, it's one thing to be completely dominant in an individual sport. Team sports, that's a different animal. But in an individual sport like golf, to be the Masters champion is just a once-in-a-lifetime thing, I think, for the most part, right? Most golfers get one crack at it. Rory McIlroy didn't just win 2, he won 2 back-to-back. That is so rare, but just proves how dominant he is in this sport. I'm so happy for him and his family. It seems like an amazing moment for them. Rory spoke after he won the championship, and he told an interesting story about how his day works. Imagine living with so much money that you can drop your kid off at school, then jump on your private jet, go and play golf at Augusta, get back on your private jet, and pick up your kid from school. Listen to this.
I honestly just don't like the 3 tournaments leading up to this event. Yeah, I'd rather come up here. You know, I did a couple of days where I dropped Poppy to school, flew up here, played, landed back home, and had dinner with her, or had dinner with Eric and Poppy. Like I did a couple of day trips like that where I felt like that was a better use of my time than going to Houston or San Antonio. So. Wasn't really about conserving energy, but I felt, you know, the more time I could spend up here, the better.
Isn't that amazing to have that much money? Drop the kid off at school, private jet to Augusta, play the most exclusive golf course in the world, and you're home in time for dinner. That is unbelievable. And congratulations again to Rory McIlroy, an individual sport like golf to be dominant 2 years in a row. That's really impressive. Now, another big thing from this weekend was weekend number 1 at Coachella. This is the big one. Justin Bieber doing his comeback. He got paid $10 million to play Coachella this weekend. $10 million. And some people are saying his performance was uninspired and lazy because he was showing videos on YouTube during part of his performance. He didn't sing the whole thing. He sung to a track. And some people are saying that was lazy. I don't see it that way. I've always liked Justin Bieber. He used to listen to me when he was a kid growing up in Stratford, Ontario. He would listen to my radio station when I was on Z103.5 doing mornings. Justin Bieber, one of his first interviews that he ever did was with me when he played the Summer Rush concert in Halifax and in Toronto. And I was on that tour with him. I got a lot of time for this guy. I think he's been through a hell of a lot, and I think he is far more talented than he gets credit for. Here's just a little bit of Justin Bieber with the kid Leroy at Coachella this weekend.
I said now I do the thing I told you that I never would have told you even when I knew I never would, I told that I find nobody else as good as you. I need you to I get drunk, wake up, I'm wasted. I realize the time that I wasted. I feel like you can't feel the way I feel now. Why I be fucked up if you can't be right here?
Much better than that. I mean, I'm sorry, but I thought that was a fantastic performance. Justin Bieber bringing out the kid Leroy for part of his set at Coachella, and it was very, very well done in my estimation. Now, another part of Coachella that isn't quite getting the hype yet, but I think in the long run it will. We had the girls from KATSEYE out there doing their set. Then they brought out the group that does the song from the K-pop Demon Hunters, and they all did it together. This sounded great. Listen to this.
I was a queen that I'm meant to be. Too long, try to play both sides, but I couldn't find my own place. Had a pattern child, 'cause I got too wild, but now that's how I'm getting paid. But I feel stay under
That's a nice moment. I thought that was great. Anybody who was at Coachella, no doubt you had a good time. You obviously ran into a lot of celebrities too, not the least of which is possibly Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry. They're coming out. I mean, they are everywhere together. It's like they want to remind us at every opportunity that they are the hot couple, and I think that that's sort of the world they want to live in. Former Prime Minister, kind of pop star, Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau. Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of people noticing two things in particular. Keep this in mind when you no doubt see the pictures of Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau at Coachella this weekend. Number one, Trudeau with the backwards cap. He's looking a little, well, he didn't look like that when he was prime minister very often. So I don't know if this is his real persona or if that was, but it looked a little, pardon the word, but douchey. If you don't mind my saying so, but I also thought he was a bit of a douche too. So that is par for the course there. A lot of other people pointing out Justin Trudeau led that charge. Him and the Liberals, don't go to America. You've got to stay away from America. Don't support anything American. Don't spend your money there. Don't do it. And what does he do? He goes to America every opportunity he gets. I'm led to believe he's in the States a lot more than he's not now, hanging out with his girlfriend, Katy Perry. So there's some hypocrisy there. He's also, in a lot of these pictures, going against his own ban on single-use plastics. I note here he's got some cutlery. He's got a red Solo cup that he's drinking out of. I believe there was a straw at one point. All the things that Justin Trudeau said Canadians can't do. We got to save the planet. Do you remember that? We got to save the planet. Justin Trudeau's doing all of those things. It's so hypocritical. And a lot of people are pointing that out, and they're furious about that. And frankly, I don't blame you. The same government that said don't go to the States. They go to the States every opportunity they get, and they don't spare a penny. Justin Trudeau, no single-use plastics. Well, in America, they've got them, and when he's there, he loves using them. Crazy. Now, let's go to another big event from this weekend. Today, Quebec is holding a by-election. It is in the Terrebonne riding, and not far from there, in Montreal, the Liberals held their leadership convention this weekend. Sorry, it wasn't a leadership convention. It was just their annual convention. They've got a leader. They've got Mark Carney. And one of the people who came out to speak at the convention this weekend was Mark's wife. She came up from the States, which is where she and the kids live, by the way. They don't live in Canada. They live in New York. Well, Diana Fox Carney came up to Montreal, and she gave a speech at the Liberal convention.
I have been told of university students already being required to read my husband's now quite famous Davos speech. Of intergenerational dinner table conversations being sparked by its contents, of new possibilities opening up in its wake, of Canada being the nation that is helping to define and shape a new world order.
We never voted on a new world order, by the way, just so everybody's clear. I know the Liberals throw this around like crazy, but we never voted on a new world order. It was very simple. We voted for the guy. Sorry, I don't say we, but the country voted for the guy who said he could get a deal done with America. Not a guy who said he was going to turn his back on America and try and align a whole bunch of other countries under China against America. That's what Mark Carney is doing, and Diana Fox Carney is cheering him on. I have no evidence that university students are now being given Mark Carney's Davos speech as required reading. I have no evidence to say that's happening, but frankly, I'd believe it. It was an extremely woke speech, and universities are extremely woke places. That's just reality. Here's a little more from the Liberal convention this weekend.
My husband and I have been stopped on the streets of Mumbai, Sydney, London, and Paris, and of course throughout Canada, by people from all backgrounds, seeking to thank Canada for our country's global leadership.
I'm inclined to take things that never happened for 100, Ken. I don't know that that's actually true. How many people are stopping Mark Carney and Diana Fox Carney in the streets around the world and in Canada saying, thank you for your leadership on a global scale? I really don't know that that's happening. But in fairness, we should hear from the man of the hour. Mark Carney was the keynote speaker, of course, at the Liberal convention this weekend. Here's a little bit of what the Prime Minister had to say.
The world's changing, not gradually, but suddenly. Yes, some are still in denial. Rather than starting on this journey, they're waiting for the past to return. No. But hope is not a plan, and nostalgia is not a strategy. And if we stand still during this rupture, we will surrender our future to others. My friends, technological change is accelerating. We can either shape our future with AI or let it control our destiny. The foundations of the international order, the order which Canada helped build and from which we have benefited for so long, that order is crumbling.
It's really crumbling because we're the ones that don't want to do a deal. The Americans are ready. In fact, the Americans have said they're now not confident that Canada and the USA will be able to reach a deal by Canada Day. They're now not confident that's going to happen because we are so behind in trade negotiations. And, well, I'm just assuming that we haven't really sent anyone down to negotiate. And if we did, it wasn't serious. All of the differences between Canada and the U.S., the deal that we need to work out in order to make us completely united and create Fortress North America, all of the things that we need to get that done are there. It's just Canada's not engaging because Mark Carney, even though last year during the election said, I'm the guy who can tame Donald Trump. I'm the Trump whisperer. I'm the one who will get a deal for Canada. He never had any intention of doing a deal. This was his opportunity to align Canada with middle powers under China. That's what he wants. And you can't have it both ways. We've got to pick. It's either we align with China or we align with the Americans. Mark Carney has picked China. There's no way to deny it. And after today, he'll have a majority government, and he's likely going to do that. One of the great things, by the way, about the Liberals having a majority government, I know there's a lot of people, probably the type that listen to this pod, that are a little more centrist or right-leaning, that don't like the idea of Mark Carney getting a majority government because they're afraid of what he's going to do when there's no opposition that can hold him back. When he's got a blank page and he can fill it in however he wants it. A lot of people are afraid of that. Well, the upside, if you want to see it, is that the Liberals have to own everything now. All of the problems in our country will stem from a government that has no opposition and carte blanche to change anything they want. If crime continues to get out of control, Liberals can't fall back on, well, we wanted to pass stuff, but the Conservatives wouldn't let us. The Conservatives have always been in favor of law and order and jail, not bail. The Liberals aren't going to do that, and now they can't hide behind the opposition. Same with the economy. They can't blame it on a dysfunctional parliament if our economy really starts to crater. All of these things will be on the Liberal government because they can do whatever they want with a majority government. All of the country's problems, all of them, you can blame on the Liberal government once they have a majority. Once they have a majority, it's on them. There's nobody else to blame. There's no deflection here. It will be on them. And hopefully, if you're not satisfied with how our country's being run, you'll join the parade and you'll call them out. There is no more excuses after the Liberals have a majority government. Anything that goes wrong is on them because they have the power to change any policy they want.
After all, Canada is a nation forged through accommodation, not assimilation, through partnership, not domination. The founding insight of our country is that unity does not require uniformity. This is neither a myth nor a miracle, but a series of choices made imperfectly across generations. Pragmatic decisions that have become a moral conviction. That our differences are a strength to be nurtured, not a risk to be managed. And so, each generation has chosen to widen the circle. And we Liberals stand in that tradition.
That's a great example of what I was just talking about. Immigration is a huge issue. I think most Canadians would agree. We let way too many people come here way too quickly, and our social safety net couldn't absorb it. Our housing market couldn't absorb it. Our jobs market couldn't absorb it. Way too many people, way too quickly. And the Liberals, once they got caught doing it, said, oh, it's okay, we'll back off. We'll cut down on the number of international students. We'll make sure that this gets fixed. That there was part of a speech where Mark Carney is telling Canadians, get used to it. Get used to it. There is no assimilation. Get used to it because the people are here and there's more coming and you better get ready for it. That's what that part of that speech from Mark Carney was. Are you ready for it? Are you ready to see what happens with crime? Are you ready to see what happens with these internet censorship bills that they're going to put back in place? Are you ready to see what happens with the economy? Are you waiting to see what happens with jobs, with houses, with all of these things? After Mark Carney has a majority government, it all falls on him. There is no more excuse. it all falls on him.
Offers me a job, 300 grand a year, right? All I have to do is show up at the border, apply for a TN visa, right? And I get this 3-year, like no questions asked, it costs $30. And now I move to Microsoft. We as Canadians have subsidized my education to the tune of, you pick the number, $500,000, right? 500,000. And if it's a graduate student, go up, right? 30,000 TN go to the US every year. You want to save yourself $5 to $10 billion? Shut the TN program. And then keep them in, or make them pay their $500,000 so that if they leave, I'm okay with that. You want to go to the US? Give me back my money. Like my dad, my mom, you all work every day to offer them their education. So we need both sides. We need to fight on one side to make sure that we bring the very best talent of the world because they all want to come here now. It's absolutely wonderful. But you can't have this sieve on the other side. You can't let $5 billion or $10 billion a year of your hard-earned cash so that Microsoft can get smarter.
Little bit of a speech there. That was during a policy discussion at the Liberal convention. That was a bona fide suggestion, which, yes, you heard Liberals cheer for at the end, that it's time to shut down the TN visa program. That's what allows Canadians to go and work in the U.S. That's one of the visas that allows them to do it. This guy here is saying, no. Can't let those young people leave. Nope, they owe us here in Canada. They should be here working in Canada. This is crazy. This is the Liberals trying to force young people to stay in the hellhole that we've created for them, where they are priced out of the home market, where they cannot find a job, where education is going up in cost, and they want to force them to stay. What was it he said? Cancel the TN visa program or charge them $500,000 exit tax if they want to leave. And the Liberals applauded that. I actually can speak to this. I've got a kid who's down in the States, living and working, and he's doing great. Now, by the way, he was not educated here. Nobody subsidized a damn thing for him except for me. If they cancel that TN visa program, then what? There's still no job for him here. He still can't afford a house here. What do the Liberals hope to accomplish by keeping him here? They want to keep him away from the Americans. The Liberals have created such an untenable situation in Canada. Young people want out, and the exodus is real. There are people leaving every single day, and that should alarm all of us. How many young people are fleeing the country because the grass is greener south of the border? They're smart enough to see it. They realize there's nothing in Canada for them right now, and they're taking off. And if they've got a good enough education or the right degree or the right qualifications, they can get a TN visa and they can work in the States. They can pay taxes in the States. The Liberals are saying, no way. You can't leave. If you leave, you got to pay us $500,000. You got to stay. You got to stay here. For what? I've been over this with my kids. I've been over it with them. There's no opportunity here. None right now. It is not a good place to be if you're a young person. There's no jobs. This place is getting very crowded. It's very expensive to live here, and we've completely priced them out of the housing market. Why would they want to stay here? There's no good reason for it. And that's the latest pitch from the Liberals. Force them to stay here. Cancel the TN visa program. And if we don't cancel the TN visa program, at least jam them with a $500,000 tax on the way out the door. Completely crazy. One of the things that we're talking about a lot today is floor crossers. We have been for a while now. A lot of people feel that's unfair. If you were elected as a New Democrat and then you get to Ottawa and say, well, I changed my mind. I'd really rather be a Liberal because I'm going to get more money and I'll be on the government side and I'll get more staff and more perks. I'm going to change. You've basically nullified the vote of every single person who voted for you in your riding. And a lot of people are saying, well, wait, that's not fair. Now, in itself, there's nothing wrong with crossing the floor. It's been done many times, and I'm sure it will happen again in the future. But typically, crossing the floor does not change the makeup of Parliament. Usually, a government that's sitting in a minority position doesn't lure over enough of the opposition to give them a majority. That is not what the Canadian people voted for. A year ago, Canadians voted to give Mark Carney a minority government, and that requires him to work with the opposition. Well, however he did it, whatever he promised them, and there had to have been something. Let's be clear about that. They didn't cross just because they woke up one day and discovered they're a liberal. Something was in it for them. Well, those are floor crossers that have changed the makeup of the Canadian electorate now. Now we have a majority government from a minority. The Liberals can do whatever they want. Does that make these floor crossers feel even a little bit bad about what they did to the people who voted for them in their riding? It doesn't sound that way. Here is the first one to cross the floor from the Conservatives to the Liberals, Chris D'Entremont.
So I'm pleased to be here with you in Montreal today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris D'Entremont, Member of Parliament for Acadie-Annapolis. I've been trying a couple of different lines as I've been speaking to folks in the foyer and as we've been going to different events today. So I don't know whether to introduce myself as a recovering Conservative or just that I was a Liberal and I didn't know it. So you guys tell me, give me some feedback later.
Well, it wasn't funny. It didn't land, Chris. You're still as uninteresting as you always were. Hey, that is just completely making a mockery of our electoral system. That is a thumb in the eye of anybody who voted Conservative in Chris's riding. He's making jokes about it. Jokes about it. What's wrong with this guy? He's not the only one. Another Conservative who crossed the floor to the Liberals for reasons that we still don't know. Matt Jeneroux at the Liberal convention.
I know you're on a clock, but before we get to that, I just want to say a huge thank you to so many people that have come up to me and introduced themselves, and not just here today, but the amount of people have reached out and welcomed me to this team. This team on stage is an incredible team, and I've got to get to know them a lot over the years, but even more now.
You're getting a lot of hugs.
Yeah. Just a joke.
Well, yeah, he bought them job security for 3 more years. Some of them means it's going to get their pension now. Hey, these people were losers. Let's be perfectly clear. I don't want to mince words. I don't want to call people names. That's normally not me, but let's just be honest about this. D'Entremont, Jeneroux, all of them. They were losers. They weren't going anywhere in the party they were in, so they jumped ship to where the grass was greener. They got an opportunity to get something for themselves, and they crossed the floor to do it. They completely betrayed their voters. The people who they looked him in the eye, probably at the door, shook their hand and said, please, please give me your vote. I'm going to go and fight for a Canada that is going to get tough on crime, that's going to unlock our resources. I'm going to go and fight for a Canada that's prosperous at home and strong abroad. I'm going to go and fight to make life more affordable. I'm going to help get rid of all carbon taxes. I'm going to do what I have to do to make Canada the best place in the world to live. That's what he said to those people, both of them, all of them. They said that to their voters, and then when they got to Ottawa and something was in it for them, they changed their mind and they flipped.
So 53% of your constituents thought that leader was Pierre Poilievre. Why don't you think he is that leader?
Well, what I heard starting even after the election was that people, they were upset that Pierre lost his riding, lost the election. They were not confident that he could regain that. And they've started to say, I really like this Mark Carney guy. I like what he's saying. Do you think he'll do what he says he's going to do? And I said, time will tell. Here we are. We're starting to see all the projects he said he was going to start and get created. He's buying F-35s. He's working on, bills to combat crime. So people, even long-term Conservative supporters in my riding have said, we really think that he's the guy from the moment.
That's Marilyn Gladu. Oh, okay. A week ago, she was all over Mark Carney. A week ago, she didn't believe any of what she just said. She didn't believe it. She was all over Mark Carney. Is he buying F-35s, by the way? Because that hasn't been announced. This is the F-35 project that Stephen Harper bought. Trudeau canceled. Then Trudeau realized he screwed up and had to bring it back, but at a much higher cost. Now, Carney is considering canceling it again or maybe just continuing on with the purchase. Carney's not buying any F-35s. The order's already in. He's just got to decide if he wants to cancel it. So that's a non-starter. Marilyn Gladu here suggesting Mark Carney is finally getting started on all the things he said he would do. Do you think he can do what he said he would do? What did he say he would do? What's the plan? Said he would build 1 million houses. Where are they? Said he would get tough on crime. No legislation. Mark Carney said he could negotiate a win for Canada with the Americans. No deal. She is completely out to lunch and gaslighting people. If that's what helps her sleep better at night, fine. But again, that is not what Canadians voted for. And if you want to just compare a little bit, Marilyn Gladu, the woman who you just heard talking so great about Mark Carney, how disappointed people are in Pierre Poilievre. Okay, here's Marilyn.
Well, it's getting close to Valentine's Day, but I'm not feeling the love from this Liberal government. It seems like they have money for everybody else. $2 billion for climate change in other countries, $1 billion for women's reproductive rights in other countries, $500 million to build roads and bridges in China. But what do they have for us? When I want to get $2.5 million for the Blue Water Ferry, they tell me they don't have any money. Seriously, to open a border crossing that is essential to trade between the U.S. and Canada, especially during a period of time when NAFTA negotiations are going on. They've got $10.5 million for a terrorist. They've got $10 million to build an ice rink on Parliament Hill. It's ridiculous.
I think everybody can see what's going on here. Everybody can see it. I think everybody understands it. They got something. Something happened to make them flip because they didn't change their ideology. Marilyn Gladu is a staunch conservative. What did they give her? What made her drastically turn the tables? What was it? Hey, what do the Liberals think, by the way, about Marilyn joining their party? First time to run into Marilyn and all these former conservatives at the Liberal convention this weekend. Here's former Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault.
What do you think of the fact that Marilyn Gladu, someone who you said, has thrown tantrums in Parliament, has been vigorously opposed to the previous government's climate policies? What do you think that she feels comfortable with the Liberal caucus? Does it kind of signal that this government is walking back those climate policies to the point that someone like her feels comfortable with the Liberals?
Well, there's a world of difference between where she was on climate change and we are as a government. Even I have been at times criticized my own government for not doing enough on climate change, but we're still doing a lot on climate change. We're still reducing our emissions in Canada, not as fast as we could, in my opinion, but that's still happening. We still have a number of measures, whether they're fiscal, investment, tax credits, industrial carbon pricing, regulations that are in place to fight climate change. Madame Gladu is an intelligent woman. She knows that when she joins the Liberal Party, this is what she's joining. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, so the Conservatives are basically being told, just shut up and fall in line. We really only want your vote. We aren't really interested in what you think. You're not going to help us shape our policy or bring us closer to the center. We're still radical extremists here. We just want your vote. Okay. All right. Fine. It's done. Liberals will have a majority government after today. One more from the Liberal Leadership Convention. In fact, two more, because there was an interesting exchange involving two people that I did not expect to see getting caught up in controversy. I'll play that one next. First off, former Liberal leadership contender. A year ago, she was running for the job that Mark Carney ended up getting. Burlington Member of Parliament, Karina Gould, is still hanging around, although she's really been knocked down the rungs of the ladder ever since she went up against Mark Carney. Well, she was at the convention in Montreal this weekend, and she talked a little bit about Parliament. You know, the Liberals think they need a majority government, and they do, to pass a lot of the things that need to get done. Maybe you're inclined to agree and say, you know what? I'm tired of the fighting. I just want to get moving on legislation. Well, according to Karina Gould here, who is the former government House leader, things have been going pretty well in the minority setup that we had.
If you asked me in the fall, I would have said this would make a big difference because, as a former House leader and someone who's been elected for over a decade, I would say last fall was one of the most dysfunctional parliaments I have ever experienced, and I've experienced some dysfunctional parliaments. But since January, really, we've seen pretty strong cooperation from the Conservatives, and so we've actually had a fairly stable parliament. I mean, we passed the budget, right? We've passed a lot of legislation. Things are moving through the House in a fairly strong way.
Huh? Well, I don't know what the need is for all this change so quickly and so imminently. Karina Gould says everything is working fine. Parliament is doing what Parliament is supposed to do. Government and opposition working together to do things like get budgets passed. So what's the problem here? Why is Mark Carney so hell-bent on having this majority? It's because He's afraid to go to the polls. He does not believe the current polling. He does not want to come and ask Canadians for their vote because he doesn't believe he's going to get it. That's number one. Number two, he's got some things that he wants to implement that he knows are going to be wildly unpopular, that are going to get the opposition fired up and ready to try and block him. And he wants those things done. It's part of his globalist agenda as part of his one world order government. Now, I did say there's one last thing I want to play from the Liberal convention this weekend. It was a really weird exchange, and I'm not exactly sure how this came about. In particular, who was hanging out with who. So you've got TV Ontario journalist Steve Paikin. I'm going to start off by saying I like Steve a lot. I've always found Steve to be a professional guy. He handles himself very well when he does his media availabilities or when he does his media segments on TV Ontario. And I don't even know if he's still doing it. I think he has now stepped down or he's in retirement, but he was at the Liberal convention this weekend. He was with the soon-to-be former leader of the Ontario Liberals, Bonnie Crombie. And a member of the independent media tried to ask questions of Steve like, hey, Steve, you're supposed to be a journalist and impartial. Why are you here at the Liberal convention wearing a Liberal lanyard with many, many other Liberals? Why is that? And then Bonnie Crombie got involved and tried to run interference for Steve. It's kind of weird.
Mr. Paikin.
No, we're not doing this.
Should journalists go on trips organized by lawless genocidal states?
Move on.
Sorry, why are you doing this? Should journalists go on a trip?
I'm happy to talk to you if you want to actually have a reasonable conversation like a person.
No.
If you want to
put your phone down, buddy. Come on.
I'm happy if it's on video, I'm happy to do it. If it's not on video, it's not a matter of personal, it's a matter of the public concern.
Put your phone down.
So if you want to sit down and have a 5 or 10 minute back and forth, I'm happy to do that. I'd love to do that, actually. Sure you will.
Anyways. We're not quite finished our conversation. We're not finished our conversation.
No comment on whether journalists should go on propaganda trips.
No, he's got no
genocidal
comment.
State.
He's got no comment.
Okay, then the next question I have is, do you think it says anything about the bias in the media that you were allowed to be the moderator of the federal election debate? Somebody who would go 2.5 years into a genocide would go on a propaganda trip by that lawless genocidal supremacist state, and you were allowed to moderate the federal election debate? That's just disgusting.
My friend.
Touch my phone again and I'm going to charge you.
You're going to what?
Right? I'm going to charge you. I'm going to charge you.
Charge me
yes.
for touching you. You're in my face.
I'm not in your face whatsoever. I'm trying to.
Wow, that got ugly. Holy cow. That was an interesting exchange with Bonnie Crombie and Steve Paikin. And I'm not even sure who that journalist was, but there was a fair number of independent journalists there. These are the ones that the federal government doesn't really like. They ask the questions that the mainstream media news reporters will not ask. That one there, you can decide for yourself if that was a fair question or not. Either way, though, there was a fair bit of independent journalists that were there trying to get some questions answered while all of the Liberals were in one place at the same time. Not everybody disliked it, though. There's one in particular that I want to play for you here because I thought this was a really good exchange, and it shows how it can be done. Not every time that you see Rebel News or Juno News or the Western Standard are Liberals going to run and hide and think, oh, no, they're going to ask me gotcha questions. It was a Liberal member of Parliament. I'm going to give him some credit. His name here is Vince Gasparo. He is from the Eglinton-Lawrence riding, an independent journalist. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was from the Western Standard, tried to ask Vince a question. Listen to how he handled this. I thought this was well done.
I always have a ton of respect for the work you do. Even though I don't probably agree with 60% of the words that come out of your mouth, I have a ton of respect for the amount of effort that you put into it. And I'm being incredibly genuine. I'm being serious. I have a ton of respect for you.
There we go. It was Rebel News and Vince at least acknowledging that, yeah, they have a right to be there. And I disagree with you, but I respect your right to say it, and I respect your right as a journalist to ask questions. That's the way this is supposed to work. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. And you know what? You can't pick and choose which members of the media you want to speak to. You just can't. We have a free media in this country. Well, we're supposed to have a free media in this country. And frankly, it seems like the government forgets that from time to time because they don't feel compelled to answer questions in the vast majority of cases unless it's an approved question and it's going to set them up to look good. Friends, before I wrap up this episode, one more thing I want to play for you because I think this is important and I don't think this is something we should forget. With all of the military action in the Middle East, particularly with Iran, we're not talking about the Epstein files anymore. And I think that's a huge problem. Right before this happened, we were starting to make some progress in figuring out who did what to kids on Epstein Island and in these globalist rich people circles. The ones who use their position to exploit people who were vulnerable. Representative Nancy Mace is a U.S. politician who has vowed she is not going to let this die. She was on with Piers Morgan the other night, and she said something that I thought was worth hearing.
But you would be shocked, Piers, at some of the names that I have seen that came across the DOJ in emails that the DOJ is protecting. And we're talking about people on both sides of the aisle. We're talking about famous people, rich people, people in power, prime ministers, former presidents, et cetera, media personalities that are named in these files. And that's why I say this is going to go down as the greatest cover-up, one of the greatest cover-ups in American history. And I don't believe the girls are actually going to see justice, which is why it's going to be incumbent upon people like Democrat Ro Khanna, Republican Thomas Massie. I'm a Republican myself who's willing to name some of those names in our committee work, on the floor of the House, whatever it takes, because this kind of thing cannot continue to go on. I want to give the next girl hope that when she comes forward, she won't be shamed. Her life won't be smeared in the Daily Mail or whatever the next press, is going to do. What they do to female victims and to children is disgusting because they're protecting their rich and powerful friends. But you'd be surprised, shocked even at some of the names in the file.
I don't know if I would be shocked or surprised at this point. Release the damn names. It's time to start getting justice for those victims, and we need to know who the perpetrators were. We need to know. We have the ability to redact out the sensitive identifying information. Go ahead and do it, and then start naming names. I am sick and tired of paying ridiculous gas prices and watching this fiasco unfold in the Middle East. I'm glad the Iranian people are going to have a new regime, and hopefully that'll lead to free and fair democratic elections. I'm glad that Iran is not going to have a nuclear weapon, but that can't be the only thing that we focus on here, America. Let's get moving on this Epstein list. It's time to name names. Friends, tomorrow we'll be in a different situation here in Canada. We will be under a Liberal majority government. That's how I see this going down. I'm going to include on tomorrow's pod some listener DMs that came in for last week, but of course I took Friday off. So if you get some time, check into tomorrow's episode. All this week I'm going to be cooking, and can't miss episodes are going to happen right here on Scott Fox After 9. Do me a favor. If you like the pod that you heard today, if you found the information useful, if you heard things in this pod that you did not hear from the news, the mainstream media, share it with someone else who wants to know what else is going on in Canada. Share it with someone else who's a little bit curious about why things are the way they are. If you know somebody who's even starting to get a little bit skeptical about the story we've been told, tell them about this pod. Tell them not to miss an episode, because every day I give you far more than you are getting from the mainstream media, and I do it on an independent basis with absolutely zero government funding. I do this to help make our country a better place. Help me grow this pod. Share it with somebody, whether it's on your social or you just tell a friend, hey, you've got to listen to this pod. I would appreciate that a lot. I'll catch you right back here in less than 24 hours. I'll leave you now with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now.